What's going on, Summoners? Welcome back to another ProGuides Wild Rift video. I'm Kangas, and today we have yet another high ELO tier list, this time on patch 2.4a. Our definition of high ELO is ranks Emerald and higher, so we're assuming that those playing these champions already understand how to fully utilize the picks, while of course also having a firm grasp of overall game knowledge. Now, a lot of this tier list will be impacted directly by the changes brought upon by patch 2.4a, so make sure to check out our patch notes overview if you haven't already. But diving right into it, we'll start off in the Baron lane. Our first pick is Jax in the A tier. To be honest, this A tier is tentative, and he may actually be a bit stronger. In the recent patch, Jax received some amazing buffs to his kit to help him duel more effectively during the laning phase. Relentless Assault, Jax's passive, now grants him 2 stacks when attacking enemy champions or minions, meaning that the more he autos, the stronger he gets. Comboed with Conqueror, the pick will definitely hold more priority thanks to the increased bonus attack speed, an essential stat for the lantern-wielding champion. Definitely keep a close eye on Jax, since those who understand how to abuse his buffs are sure to become absolute monsters. But before we continue, we got our question of the day. What champion have you been spamming in Season 3? The game's meta and environment has shifted quite a bit over the last couple months, so I wouldn't be surprised if the champs that you're maining have changed as well, but let me know in the comments down below. The second pickup is Fiora in our OP tier. She's not OP plus anymore, meaning that she's not quite as brainless as she used to be, but she's definitely still busted. For Fiora one-tricks who have a firm grasp of her base mechanics and maximum potential, she's still oppressively annoying to deal with. But in light of the numerous marksmen that have been entering Wild Rift, these crit-abusing champions are quite effective at kiting and then punishing the Fiora if she recklessly dives in. Especially since AD carries excel at dealing a streamline of DPS, making it pretty difficult for Fiora to mitigate all that damage. Now our final Baron lane pick is Dr. Mundo in the B tier. Ever since he got butchered after being completely overpowered in the jungle, the tank has definitely been struggling to become relevant in the current meta. To help him out in the Baron lane, Riot buffed his base health stats and health regeneration, both of which are essential numbers for his overall kit. The cost of his infected cleaver was decreased as well, meaning that he can trade more effectively now. And with the regeneration on the ultimate buffed as well, Dr. Mundo players will be happy to know that he is finally viable again, albeit still falling behind hyper carries such as Aurelia and Akali. But hey, if you're looking to play a frontline tank, make sure to try him out. So here is the full Baron lane tier list. Now, before moving on to the jungle, I want to remind everybody to join our community Discord. We hold pretty regular giveaways, and the server is full of friendly players looking to discuss Wild Rift. Next up in the jungle, we have Fizz now in our S tier picks. Riot caught wind of how absolutely busted he was before, which is kind of funny because they literally buffed Fizz jungle giga hard in the past and purposefully made it busted. But now that the pick has had time in the spotlight, Riot axed the slippery fish's damage. He deals less damage to monsters now, and with longer cooldowns on both his ultimate and third ability, this means that the AP jungler will not be able to perform quite as many game-breaking 100-0 engages. He's still a great pick, but now players can actually punish his misplays, rather than just having him able to simply jump out of harm's way every single time. Our next jungle pick is Rengar, who has also dropped down from the OP tier to the S tier because of the direct nerfs to his kit. The kitty cat isn't as strong in the average levels of play since his damage isn't the most intuitive to master, but in the top levels of play, the Apex jungler definitely created unfair playing situations for his enemies, warranting the damage and utility nerfs on the abilities. All of the nerfs targeted his early game, so Rengar is still a beast in the late game, striking fear into every squishy champion when he pops his ult. But with less presence during the beginning phases of the game, which is a very essential stage in the game of Wild Rift, he's overall less powerful. The last jungle up is Graves, now in the A tier on this list. He got directly nerfs too, with less base attack per level. Considering Graves needs to farm and scale to become a monster, this hurts him substantially. In addition, the items that made him overpowered also received some nerfs in patch 2.4a, increasing many of the previously broken items' costs. This therefore significantly slows down the speed at which he can effectively impact the game, diminishing his viability and pushing him down from a top tier pick to simply a viable one in the jungle. So here's the full jungle tier list. Now moving on to the mid lane, our first pick is also Graves. Surprise! The marksman may not be as strong in the jungle, but he's actually perfectly a-okay in solo lanes. He's fantastic in both the mid and Baron lanes, and though his base kit was nerfed a bit, the Bloodthirster buffs are more than enough to keep him nice and happy in lane. The item receives some bonus attack damage, which compensates for the nerf to Graves' attack growth, and Bloodthirster's crit and lifesteal grant Graves incredible utility, allowing him to outsustain and therefore outtrade his opponents. Graves in lane still feels just as great as before, very much warranting the S tier pick for this list. Yasuo is in our OP plus tier. I hate to see when that happens, but I really hope that mentioning his strengths in this video won't increase how many players insta-lock him in. But honestly, if anybody wants to main the iconic meme of a champion, now is as good a time as any. The biggest reason he's so strong is thanks to his synergy with Solari Charge Blade, which grants a maximum of 50% crit chance from the item alone. And since Yasuo doubles crit change, this allows him to reach his 100% guaranteed crit chance power spike very early in the game. That is pretty insane. And our third pick for mid lane is Lucian, now in the A tier for mid. Let's be real, he was too busted before and definitely needed to be bumped down a peg or two. It's great to see that Riot was swift in axing his kit, and patch 2.4a nerfed his base attack damage along with his AD growth, alongside decreasing his base armor in order to make him more vulnerable to enemy attacks. In addition, with a slightly longer cooldown on his third ability, Relentless Pursuit, the pick definitely won't grow nearly as powerful as he did in the previous patch. And thank goodness for that, because he was viable and broken in literally every lane. So here's the full mid lane tier list. Now our first pick for AD carries is Draven in our OP tier. He's definitely got quite a learning curve, requiring players to micromanage their axe position and catching them in order to maximize their damage output. But once players are able to confidently do this and to understand exactly when to go in, the Draven pick is absolutely nutty. Each one of his autos deals absurd amounts of damage, hands down the strongest auto attack out of any AD carry in the game. Especially with the Bloodthirster buff and overall crit itemization options available to the Executioner, Draven steamrolls games, creating little room for the enemy to come back once he begins taking over. If you're looking to invest time into learning a mechanically intensive but rewarding marksman, Draven is the pick for you. Next up is Ezreal, also in our OP picks for the duo lane. The champion definitely takes some time to scale with a slightly weaker early game, so if you play against him, try to punish him before he scales, because once he hits that power spike, he only continues to grow stronger. Ezreal is 100% capable of hyper-carrying games during teamfights thanks to his synergy with certain itemization. The damage numbers and utility on his first ability, Mystic Shot, is crazy high, especially when comboed with Spellblade and Seroldo's Grudge. This item essentially lets the on-hit effects from Trinity Force's Spellblade to slow as well, creating absolutely abysmal play conditions for the enemy team. And considering his mana issues are practically non-existent once he builds Mana Mine, there is nothing realistically stopping him from constantly spamming his Mystic Shot over and over again. Now our third pick for Dragon Lane is Vayne in the A tier. She lacks early game pressure since her damage comes from single target on hit, basically just meaning her wave clear sucks. Most of the other AD carries can simply push the wave faster than her and therefore take lane priority with ease. But if she's played with a support who helps trim the wave, of course without stealing the farm, or if she's matched up against an AD carry who also can't clear waves fast, she can actually crawl her way out of the laning phase to begin to scale into the late game carry. Given the right circumstances, she is an amazing pick, but since she can't be picked blindly into many matchups, she's only an A tier for this list. So here's the full AD carry tier list. Now finally onto supports, the first one up is Soraka in the A tier. Yeah, you heard that right, she is finally out of the C and D tiers and has risen to viability in Wild Rift. Astral Infusion's cooldown was decreased, which is her second ability, responsible for the main bulk of her healing. In addition, the cost of her own health was significantly reduced when she's rejuvenated, meaning that if Soraka manages to hit an enemy champion with Star Call, her first ability, she's then able to provide a fat weapon heal at nearly no cost at all. The change allows Soraka to play aggressively and then be rewarded for doing so. This essentially also solves the biggest issue surrounding the champion, since her most blatant weaknesses prior to patch 2.4a was the high cost of health for her heals. And the second support up is Thresh in our A tier. Honestly, he was just released in a good state and feels amazing to play, but isn't necessarily busted either. Those who can hit his hooks will be overpowered, and those who can't seem to land a skill shot will just get destroyed. Thresh is really the perfect champion for support players looking for a slick and strong skill expression with great CC and utility to adapt to any matchup. He's just essentially a stronger and more useful Blitzcrank. Speaking of Blitzcrank, he is still undoubtedly a D tier pick in high elo. The champion offers little merit, falling off incredibly hard if players know how to avoid his hook. But unlike Thresh, Blitz doesn't have much else that his kit can provide his team. I mean, at least Thresh can throw out the Lantern and peel for his team with the Flay, but Blitz really just has the enhanced auto attack that knocks up enemies and then the silence on his ultimate. These all pale in comparison to the utility that Thresh provides, so there's little to no reason to play Blitz when Thresh exists. So here's the full support tier list. And that will conclude today's high elo tier list. Don't forget this tier list is for high elo specifically, so assume that these players playing the champions have a firm understanding of the pick and the game knowledge necessary to abuse them. We also have our low elo tier list, so make sure to check out for that one too. Anyway, thanks for watching today's video. That's it for today, so best of luck on the Rift, everybody. Stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next one.